Hot 106.5. It's time now for Front Page Jacksonville, a show that delves into the issues that affect you. We believe in transparency and providing only the facts. And now, here's Octavius Davis.
Good morning, and once again I say good morning to ya. It's fall, y'all. Fall is here. November is in the building. And I'm quite happy to be on this side of the living. Should the good Lord allow me to experience life this upcoming Friday, the kid will be 46 years old.
It's November.
Oh.
I forgot, friend.
46, that's okay.
I would have remembered.
I know. Wanda and I are fall babies. I'm November, she's December. I'm a Scorpio, you're a Sagittarius.
Yes.
See, that's why our sibling rivalry is the way that it is.
Yes, indeed.
So good morning to you. Happy birthday to all the Scorpios out there. I would say happy birthday to all of the fall babies, but I only recognize Scorpios. Only us Scorpios get that greeting this morning. But glad to be here for another edition of Front Page Jacksonville. Hope all has been well with you and your loved ones this past week. Got an announcement to make. The kid, the young one, OJ is how we affectionately refer to him at home. Although he's not a junior. My son's name is Octavius Davis II, but we just call him OJ because we can't call the boy Sequel. Hey, Seek. It just doesn't have the same ring to it. But my son, Octavius II, OJ, he is a freshman in high school. For the past 2 years. Yeah, he's growing up, Wanda. He's the second tallest person in the house now. He is far above his mom and sisters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's the baby boy. But yeah, I think he's gonna catch me. I do. I think he's gonna catch me. Just looking at, he's subtly asking questions like, "Hey, Dad," because his voice is as deep as mine. "Hey, Dad, you gonna wear those shoes today?" "Sir, they are my shoes. I may not wear them today, but guess who isn't wearing them? You." Yeah, OJ is turning into a little man, a young man. Yeah, Wanda is dealing with auntie grief of the reality of.
I'm thinking about when you brought him to my job.
Yeah.
He was a baby. He spit up on me. And now he has a deep voice. I haven't seen him in a very long time.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
But I'll tell you, here's one of my frustrations, and I'm going to get to the announcement in a moment in regards to my son.
Oh.
Here's one of my frustrations with him. So his voice doesn't quite yet have the depth, but he's on his way.
Oh,
right. He's definitely on his way to having the same type of baritone as myself. But here's one of the things that's frustrating to me, Wanda. Mm-hmm. And I know as a parent who's listening right now, if you have a teenage son, I am almost positive your experience is the same. Mm-hmm. "Hey, OJ, would you like something to eat?" What?
Say what now?
Boy, open your mouth and enunciate. Project from your diaphragm, please.
Oh, Lord.
Make sure the person in the back of the room can hear you. As a public speaker, his dad, all this public speaking, son, have you learned nothing? And I kid you not, it happens all the time, especially when he and I are in the car. He's literally sitting right next to me.
And you can't hear him.
Here's what I can hear. "Hey, Dad, yes?"
Oh, Lord.
I kid you not. The mumble is real with this generation of young people. But either case, so the announcement, the past 2 years, 8th grade, 7th grade year, he tried out for the basketball team in middle school. did not make the basketball team.
Oh, really?
Did not make the basketball team. And so maybe a year and a half ago, having conversations with him. All right, son, high school is coming up. What do you think you want to begin pursuing in life? He said, Dad, I want to go to the NBA. Well, son.
Now, he said that loud and clear.
No, he said that loud and clear. Well, he said that loud and clear, and what he also says loud and clear is when he wants V-Bucks or virtual money to be able to buy stuff for the video games that he plays. Yeah, he articulates that quite well.
Yeah.
Rhodes Scholar level articulation at that point when he wants something. Dad, I want to go to the NBA. I said, son,
he's 13, right?
He's 14 now.
He's 14?
Yeah, he'll be 15 in February. That's right, February.
I was just going to go there.
I know you were. Rest in peace to R.J. Washington. Oh, that's how he would say February. February. That's right, February. Come on out. That's right, February. I said, well, son, I don't know if you have NBA work ethic, my boy. I don't know if it's in the cards for you. You don't have the work ethic. You don't practice like you want to go to the NBA. Now, granted, statistically speaking, for those who are very familiar with that statistic, very, very, very small pool of players who actually make it into the NBA.
Right.
So
Same with the NFL.
Same with NFL, right?
Yeah.
And so I get it. The young Padawan spent a lot of time on the basketball court over this past year.
Okay.
And this past Tuesday, he wrapped up tryouts for the high school basketball team. He made the high school basketball team.
Very good. Not varsity.
Not varsity.
Okay.
But he's on the team. So one of the things that I do like at his school, they have varsity, JV, and a freshman team. So he made the freshman team.
Varsity, JV, and a freshman team.
Exactly.
Oh, never. Okay, that's new.
It was my first time hearing of it when I went to the parent meeting with the coaches and everything prior to the tryouts starting. And they communicated that we have a freshman team. The purpose of the freshman team is we have a lot of young men that come out to try out for the team.
Right.
And we want to be able to develop them so that they can essentially continue moving on to JV and then ultimately varsity. So the freshman team allows the coaches to begin developing those young men to continue through, progressing through with their basketball experience.
Okay.
So he's made the freshman team, which is a great step.
Yeah.
Very excited for him. And so his mom and I both, we had to talk with him. Okay, well, your grades have to match because this is a part of that NBA work ethic.
Right.
You can't be or want to be LeBron James on the court, but I would like to use a reference of a character of some sort, but I can't think of anybody. I was going to say, but be radio in the classroom, but
Right.
no, son, you have to.
I was going to say Boo Boo the Fool. I can't think of anybody.
So you gotta put in the work, son. But I'm proud of him. Very happy that he's able to make this step, and whether he fully commits to going, attempting to do the NBA route or not. That's neither here nor there. Eventually, time will tell that journey for him. But, my wife and I, his mom, we are actively putting him in situations to be exposed. Exposure. I share with you, he's a phenomenal artist, sketch artist.
Oh, gosh.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, really good.
And so SCAD, I can't think of what SCAD stands for, but it's basically a school in Savannah, Georgia for architecture and art and design and things of that nature. They have a summer program that he's now eligible for because in the summer he'll be a rising sophomore in high school.
Right.
So we're looking at putting him in that program, which is a week long there in Savannah, Georgia at the college. And it's students from all over the world within that realm of art and design and things of that nature. So we want to get him exposed to that. One of the things in our communities as African Americans in particular, that's probably the main reason why or should I say a catalyst as to why many students don't quite excel the way they potentially could,
Sure.
just due to exposure.
Right.
And environment is a huge part of anyone's success, no matter what they're seeking to pursue. So, kudos to Octavius Davis II as he continues.
OJ.
And well, he's beginning his high school journey, but as he continues his interest and love for basketball, very proud of him.
Tripped out. I remember when he didn't like to put his feet on the sand at the beach.
Yeah, right. That's right, because you were at our wedding,
right?
And oh my goodness, we had to. My wife and I, we got married on the beach, like down, like in the I call it dirt, like down in the dirt of the beach.
The dirt and the sand, right? Exactly.
And so my wife and our kids were walking down to the main spot, and our son, he did not like the feel of the sand in his toes.
It was so funny.
And we had to literally carry him the entire time.
I think your mom carried him.
Either my mom or one of his sisters. I don't remember, because he was. I think he was maybe 2 at that time, if that all. If that all. And I still have that photo of us walking down to the beach.
I got those pictures.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure. But staying in this vein of academia and high school, shout out to Principal Vincent Hall over there at Raines High School. He won the DCPS 2024-2025 Principal of the Year. Congratulations, sir. Dedication, I believe the story stated that he's been in education for over 30 years. And he was a student at Raines High School, and now he's the principal over there at Raines High School. And so they did a surprise celebration for him. All the kids, they're in the gym, and his family, they all worked it out. The superintendent was there to present the award to him. I'm curious, how, A, did they keep that from him? But I'm also curious, B, when whoever made the call on the walkie-talkie, Principal Hall, we need you to come to the gymnasium. As he's walking through those halls and he don't see a lick of student nowhere, I wonder if the spirit of Joe Clark was preparing to rise up in him, trying to find out where these students were. But either case, he gets to the gymnasium. The students are there. The superintendent is there. His family is there. And I mean, they made a big to-do about it. Band, cheerleaders, he came in and they're celebrating him. And I think that is so dope, not only for Principal Hall to be recognized as Principal of the Year, but for the school to really rally around him, to really support him. Top tier. That is absolute top tier. And, as someone who formerly worked in education and is familiar with the landscape of the lack of African American male teachers in the classroom, when I tell you it is abysmal when you look at the numbers. I've worked at, I think, three, maybe 4 different charter schools and connected with several others throughout that process. Black male teachers in the classroom is a rare sight, an endangered species even. So I don't know how or when Principal Hall started his academic career in education, but the fact that he's now ascended to principal, I can only imagine the impact he's been able to have on the lives of those students who have come through the walls of Raines. Representation is so important. Representation is extremely important. I still remember my 11th grade math teacher. And as I think back on it, with the exception of PE coaches, I don't include PE coaches in the equation when you speak about African-American male teachers in the classroom. Although, don't get me wrong, coaches play a significant role, but I'm thinking specifically about academics. As I think back over my high school career and even my middle school career, I can only recall having one African-American male teacher. Elementary, I know for a fact, I didn't have any in elementary. I had one African-American male teacher. His name was Mr. Kane. He was my algebra teacher when I attended Terry Parker High School. And Mr. Kane was up in age. He was probably in his 60s. But when you're a kid, when you're 17, 16 years old, you don't really have a concept of age. When you're 16, 17 years old, somebody 30 is 90 years old to you. You have a very skewed perception of age when you're that young. But here it is, I'm approaching 46. I'm like, no, 50 is very young. Yeah, that's because 50 is knocking on the door. But I remember Mr. Kane, and what really stands out in my mind about Mr. Kane, especially when we would have a test, I remember seeing him walk around the classroom, putting our test on our desks, and for whatever reason, he would always say, "I got 5 on it. I got 5 on it." Now this is 95, 96. If you're not familiar with "I Got 5 on It," "I Got 5 on It" is a song by the Loonies. Okay. And the 5 that they got on it is on the Florida ballot for Amendment 3.
Good one.
They're talking about having 5 on the marijuana. So Mr. Kane walking around, and again, in my 16, 17-year-old mind, he was like 70 years old passing out these tests. I'm like, "I got 5 on it." 5 on what, Mr. Kane? Come on, man. But it made an impression on me. He was an excellent math teacher, and he worked with me profusely. I've shared in previous shows just the challenges that I had with math coming throughout school. But I did fail his class. I told you, I failed algebra 4 times in high school. He was one of the 4. He was one of the 4. But he put in the work. He tried to work with your boy. But the math just wasn't mathing for me. But man, kudos, Principal Hall. Thank you, sir, for your service to your family, to our community, to the students at William M. Raines High School. May your legacy continue to multiply in the heart and minds of those students so that it will produce more successful, productive men and women in society. And who knows, perhaps even inspire a new generation of African American male teachers in the classroom and education. Hey, look, we got a lot of great stuff lined up for you today. There's a few other stories that we're going to touch on. One very quickly that I'll touch on before we go to the break. Staying in the realm of education, congratulations also to the cafeteria ladies, the cafeteria workers with Duval County Public Schools.
Oh, did they pass they
have a tentative pay agreement.
Oh,
yes.
Yes.
Miss Shirley and them got the tentative pay agreement.
Yeah, I think they were trying to get, they were asking for $15 an hour versus the $13 that they're currently getting.
And what here's what the agreement has settled on so far, because it is tentative. Mm-hmm. Starting minimum rates of pay will be going up to $14 an hour, October of 2024. So we just came out of that this year.
Well,
right?
Yeah, now.
Correct.
Okay.
2025, it'll go up $1 to $15 next school year.
Yeah, very
and
good.
it'll go to $15.30 in 2026.
Okay.
Right. Starting pay rate increase for various classifications ranging from 2 to 14%. Longevity pay for senior employees. Stronger workplace protections and contract enforcement. And recognition of Juneteenth as a paid holiday for administrative building and summer employees.
Well, all right. Fight the power.
Yeah. So kudos to look.
Okay, Miss Shirley.
Miss Shirley now.
Yeah.
Huh? Head, neck, and all, baby. You want mashed taters? Around the mashed taters for everybody.
Okay. And I said, because that was one of the stories that I covered this week during Ricky Smiley morning show. And I said, pay them people.
Pay them, please.
Right. Yeah. Give them their money.
And quite honestly, I mean, we already know that the disproportionate pay for teachers in the classroom, but the paraprofessionals, I mean, this is another realm of low pay. So I'm glad that their union has stepped up for them. Their union, AFSCME, it does not give me what that acronym stands for. Ask me. You ask me, I don't know. Ask me, I don't know. I'm gonna ask you. But they did fight on behalf of cafeteria workers throughout Duval County Public Schools. So they did get their raise. Congratulations to them.
Oh, that's great.
A lot more that we'll have an opportunity to cover throughout the show. Next hour, we're going to have Moncrief's favorite son, Adrian A-Train Smith, is going to be joining us in the studio to talk about his comedic journey, as well as an event that is coming up this Friday. You're going to find out about that and more in just a little bit. This is Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis.
Front Page Jacksonville resumes on Hot 106.5.
Before getting into the heavy and deep stuff of today's show, I want to highlight another positive note that's taken place here in the Jacksonville community within the past couple of days. A 16-year-old started a nonprofit organization 6 years ago. Hannah's Hope House is the name of the nonprofit that 16-year-old Hannah Hall created, and she collects coats and other personal items for those in need. This past weekend, they collected more than 300 items to give to people in need, including coats, shoes, blankets, gloves, and toiletries. I love that. Kudos to you, Hannah Hall. She reminds me of, of course I would draw a blank when I seek to acknowledge her. Astronaut Star Bright. I'm trying to think of her. Taylor. What is Taylor's last name? There's a young lady from Jacksonville. I think she's off in college now at Spelman. At a very young age, and when I say young age, probably a little younger than Hannah, than when Hannah started. So 6 years ago, Hannah would have been 10. So Taylor, probably around 8, 9 years old. She began doing a lot of philanthropic work throughout the community, seeking to fight literacy and raising books to give to people. And she wanted to be an astronaut. And so she would wear this astronaut suit at these different events. And Astronaut Star Bright was like her persona. I guess you could say. And Taylor is phenomenally brilliant in a lot of different ways. So her philanthropic efforts with wanting to help young ladies, girls in particular, allowed her to be in rooms with individuals such as Oprah Winfrey, Chris Pine, other notable figures throughout the acting community, throughout the entertainment industry, because these individuals contributed towards many of the programs that she put into place. I think there was a movie that came out a few years ago called Wrinkle in Time. I think Oprah Winfrey produced that movie or was in that film, one of the two. But even the main actress in that film, she and Taylor developed a friendship because Taylor was seeking to make a difference in the lives of other people and had these different campaigns of giving, and all these other people were contributing towards that. So I share that, Hannah, if you're listening, at 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what 16-year-old is listening to a talk show at 6 o'clock in the morning. But if you are listening, keep going. Keep going. Your heart to serve other people will not go unnoticed, and it won't go unserved. Whenever we serve other people, we can sometimes neglect to properly service ourselves. But if everyone is operating to the harmony of existence and the harmony of life, there will be those who will also come to serve you, to ensure that you don't go without. So often it's easy to see a problem in society or within our community. It's easy to complain about it. It's easy to see someone else's plight and say, oh, somebody should do something about that. Well, guess what? Oftentimes we are the sum to help the body. But what I've kind of observed sometimes, I won't say often, because I believe that more often than not, the sums do step in to help the bodies. But sometimes there are those who take pleasure out of complaining. They want to leave it up to someone else to fix the problem or to correct the issue, or, man, they should do something about that. Yes, what ideas do you have? What ideas are you bringing to the table? Come with solutions, not problems. That's one of the things that I encourage my team. I oversee a team of about 20 people across 4 different counties. And my stance of leadership is this. A, I'm going to lead by example. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I myself have not already done or is not willing to do. But then secondly, if you are over a particular area, I have invested you, I've deputized you to own that. You have ownership over that particular function of this team. So that means when you find yourself faced with a challenge or with a problem and you come to me with it, I'm more than happy to coach you through it. But one of the first questions I'm going to ask you is, what would you like to do? Don't come to me with your pen and pad asking me to solve the problem for you. No, come to me with at least 3 solutions that I can help you navigate through. Hannah is coming to the table with solutions. Hannah's Hope House has helped collect 300 items for people in need. That's a young lady that's solution-minded. And I believe her future is going to be phenomenally. I have braces for those of you who are listening. So if my words get caught up, it's trying to enunciate over these braces at times requires me to kind of, push a little harder. But I believe, Hannah, you will have an opportunity to do some great things moving forward. Your future is going to be phenomenally bright. And, man, kudos to you as well as your team, your family, and all those who support you. So as I mentioned, I wanted to do one more bright note before we looked at some of the not so positive things that has taken place in our community over this past week. Where do I want to start? Any, meeny, miny, mo. There have been a few things. I guess I'll go with the most. I was gonna think about saving this for next hour, but I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this right now. If you are a long-time listener of the show, I say long time. I think this is the second month. Month number 2 of Front Page Jacksonville. But a topic that I know I have spoken to more than once. And as a matter of fact, I'll go ahead and open the phone lines now, 833-758-1065. That's 833-758-1065. If you'd like to jump in here on Front Page Jacksonville with your thoughts, comments, or questions. But a topic I've spoken to a couple of times throughout the past few weeks is the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. Well, they have recently announced that they are going to expand their gang unit here in Jacksonville. So what does that look like? What does that expansion look like? Previously, the unit comprised of 1 squad containing a sergeant and 8 detectives. So upon the expansion, the unit will gain an additional sergeant and 4 additional detectives. So if I'm looking at this correctly, there will now be 2 sergeants in the gang unit and a total of 4 detectives who will comprise of this expanded gang unit. So what does that mean? Well, that's going to help JSO continue in their efforts with combating much of the gang activity that they've reported is present here in Jacksonville. There are 30 gangs in Jacksonville. 30. And I'm just going based off the information that's here on this story. 30 gangs. I don't know the name of these gangs. I don't know. Back in the day, and I'm thinking back in the 80s, the movie Colors. that came out. One of the things in that film, as the movie as the name of the movie portrays, many gangs in the 80s were identified by the different colors that they would wear. I don't know if that's still a thing or not. At least not here in Jacksonville. I'm not sure. I think on the West Coast they still get down like that, but I'm not exactly sure. JSO's gang unit is working with the man known on the streets as Switzerland to relocate gang members to other states and save youth from violence, jail, or death. So this is a separate story from the JSO expanding their gang unit, but it's all connected. Because with JSO expanding the gang unit, as I mentioned, they'll now have the 2 sergeants, they'll have 12 detectives, but there are 30 gangs that this unit is seeking to combat here in our community. So not only is JSO saying that there are 30 active gangs operating in Jacksonville, but they're also saying that of those 30 gangs, they have a total of 577 documented members.
My Lord.
That's a lot of people.
Well, you had me at 30 gangs.
Yeah.
Really? Do we need that many? It just seems like our population...
Well,
I don't know what the per
the gang
capita,
quota. I don't know what the gang quota member is,
right,
but
per capita. Sure. But that just seems like that's some LA population stuff.
Yeah,
that's
a pretty big number. Again, 833-758-1065. 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump in on this conversation. Yeah, that's a lot of gang activity.
I'm very surprised. Yeah.
And, admittedly, I rarely go out. If I'm not going to work, right, to the store, right, so I'm not out in these streets like that.
Same.
I don't hang out at night and things. So there's a lot that, because of my age range and just my lifestyle, there's a lot of things that I'm not connected to or associated with. So I just don't know.
I'm there with you.
Right?
Yeah.
But good Googa Mooga. It doesn't seem like that.
I'm going to have to ask my children, hey, do y'all know?
Yeah.
This really surprises me. It really surprises me.
And it almost, like for myself, it makes me say, okay, I don't know if that one additional sergeant and 4 additional detectives is going to be enough as JSO expands their gang unit.
But here's the thing, too, which also kind of gives me a little bit of pause. Mm-hmm. I haven't heard about a lot of gang activity, gang violence. Excuse me.
Well, Wanda,
I'm not saying that there isn't any,
sure,
but and we do occasionally hear about it.
Sure.
But the level of there are 30 gangs and over 500 members in these gangs, I'm not hearing. It just is not equating to me. Mm-hmm.
No, and I think that's a very fair point to bring up. Mm-hmm. Because, with me, it's all about the crescendo. It's all about the build-up. I'm going somewhere.
Okay.
Right. I'm definitely going somewhere with this. And the reference that I want to make is the most recent JSO story we discussed on this show.
Yeah.
The situation that took place on Justina Road, I guess maybe almost 4 weeks ago now.
Right.
Where
they were wrong.
Where the members of this gang unit.
Quote, gang, right.
Right. And I did use air quotes if you're not watching the YouTube version of the show. Officers reported witnessing gang activity. But what those officers did not know was at the time they were observing this activity, that activity was also being live streamed on Facebook.
Right.
And the viewers, because I watched the video.
Right.
To me, those were 3 young men just kicking it.
Absolutely.
Hanging out.
You saw what everybody else saw.
Right. I didn't see any gang activity.
Right. There was no gang activity.
In the JSO report, they spoke about seeing drugs and
Seeing a gun.
seeing a weapon and,
Yeah.
ta-da-da-da-da. We didn't see any of that on Facebook Live.
No, we didn't.
And so what was the end result? Well, the end result was a young man lost his life.
And he wasn't even doing anything.
Now, he ran when the officers came. And JSO released the body cam footage, I think, 10 days after the incident took place.
Right.
They had at least 21 days to release it. They released it in 10.
Right.
And as I said here on the show, okay, what I saw in the video lines up with what was written in the report in terms of the young man running. The young man pulled out a gun. The officer opened fire.
Right.
The young man got up after being hit and continued running. Officers gave chase. Ultimately, the young man, he was at the doorstep of a home in the area, and ultimately, due to his injuries from the first wound, he passed away. However, in that same footage that JSO released, they reference the gang unit for JSO observing gang activity, but the individuals that they highlight in the video as being the known gang members were not the same 3 young men that the officers approached. They weren't the same.
Somebody lying somewhere.
And so the question that I have with the 30 active gangs operating in Jacksonville that have a total of 577 documented members, JSO says this. I'm looking at right here on the story, the news article. How are they defining gang?
Very good question. And is there specialized training for being a part of a police gang unit?
That's a great question as well.
Because somebody's getting something wrong somewhere.
How is gang being defined? Now, over the past, I'm going to say the past 10 years, something that I am aware of is that I do know that a lot of rap music that's being produced, there's a lot of, there have been a lot of innuendos in these songs of committing murders and things of that, you know, a phrase in particular, smoking on. Well, that's a phrase meaning that, you know, smoking on, and they'll say a particular person's name. Well, 9 times out of 10, when they said that, this person who they reference is already deceased. And when they say that I'm smoking on such and such, that's them saying, I murdered such and such person.
Right.
And so a lot of that over the past 10 years has been going on in music. It was predominantly in the Midwest and has made its way down here to Jacksonville. And word on the street is there was a pretty prevalent gang in Chicago that made its way down here and set up shop in Jacksonville. So I don't know how they're defining gang, but when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about how the gang is expanding. And it may not be what you think. This is Front Page Jacksonville. I'm Octavius Davis.
Now back to the show that informs you and discusses the issues. Front Page Jacksonville on Hot 106.5.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump in on the conversation right here on Front Page Jacksonville. Prior to the break, we were talking about JSO expanding the gang unit. Prior to the announcement of this expansion, the JSO gang unit operated with 1 sergeant and 8 detectives. The expansion will now add an additional sergeant to this unit and 4 additional detectives, allowing the JSO gang unit to expand to a total of 14 members. And so Wanda and I were discussing how exactly is JSO defining gang? Because according to an article that was released, JSO has stated that they've identified 30 active gangs right here in Jacksonville. Of those 30 active gangs, they are comprised of 577 members. That is a lot of of gang activity. If memory serves me correctly, I think Jacksonville's population is just shy of 1 million. Just over? Yeah, I think we might be over 1 million citizens now. And so 30 gangs, I mean, shoot, that's a lot. And granted, you watch the news just as I do. We see incidents in the news, stories in the news of unfortunate matters where someone has lost their life or unsolved shootings. And we hear about this stuff. We hear and we see on the news about these drug activities and things of that nature that are taking place throughout the community. But 30 gangs? 577 members? I remember when I first heard about the gang population increasing in Jacksonville, the first thing that caught my attention was that it was always referred to in a very non-defined way. It's always gangs. Never any names of the gangs, but just gangs. 30 gangs. Well, what are the names of these gangs? And again, I'm detached from so many things throughout the community, especially when you talk about drug activity, gang activity. I ain't about that life. Never have been. Never been in them streets like that. Okay? I have a 0 credit score, and we talk about street credibility. I have 0. None. My street credibility is bankrupt. But it just seems odd. Now, on one hand, if JSO needs the additional support in an effort to thwart the gang activity, I'm all for that. But I would like to know how they're defining a gang. And so in the day and time that we now live in, any and everything is accessible online. Here's how the FBI defines a gang. Gangs are associations of 3 or more individuals who adopt a group identity in order to create an atmosphere of fear or intimidation. That's how the FBI defines a gang. That's a very loose definition. Because Wanda, you and I were talking prior to the break about the supposed gang activity that JSO officers claimed they were witnessing with the situation that took place on Justina Road. So now let's put the FBI's definition into context with that story. Because one, we say, hey, there was 3 guys, they was kicking it, hanging out, just having a good time. The FBI, they've now entered the chat. A gang is an association of 3 or more individuals. By definition, they were a gang.
So me, you, and your guests is coming.
We would be a gang.
We could be a gang.
We could be a gang. And the other part of that definition, take on a group identity to create an atmosphere of fear or intimidation. Do you know how subjective an atmosphere of fear or intimidation is? That's subjective.
Sure. My 2 boys, you're your man.
Yes.
Walking down the street.
Yes.
Oh, 3 black guys in a gang.
It's a gang.
I was scared.
It's a gang.
Yeah.
So
not fair.
I want to take it a step further. Because if that's how we're identifying a gang, and if it's what's being used to justify referring to there being 30 gangs in Jacksonville and 577 gang members, then do we have to add another group to that and say that there's 31 gangs in Jacksonville? Based on definition, a group of 3 or more, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation? Well, Octavius, why would you say such a thing? Well, let's allow the Florida-Georgia game to enter the chat. Yesterday, there was a video that began circulating on social media of two JSO officers pummeling. I'm talking schoolyard, full straddle, beat down, two gentlemen at the game, creating an atmosphere of fear and intimidation. There was a third incident, that video I haven't had an opportunity to see yet, where there was a situation with a ticket. The officer told the person to do a particular thing with his ticket. The person did not comply. He was tased. Hold on now. That just seems a little ish to me. Gang-ish. Brute-ish. Bully-ish. What are we really doing, Sheriff Waters? What's really going on? As I began thinking about this, there have been entirely too many instances of situations like this. I'm not even talking about throughout the country. I'm talking about right here in Duval, in the 904. Entirely too many incidents at this point to say, oh, well, there were just some bad apples. Well, no, hold on now. We have a bad apple patch at this point. If that's the route that we're going to go with it. Because as someone who, I do public relations for a living. I'm the director of a public relations team. I know talk points when I hear them. I know what it looks like. I know what it sounds like. I know PR spins when I hear them. Don't play in our face. And I am not anti-police. I'm not. I'm pro-law enforcement. I really am. It's 7 o'clock. This is WHJX Ponte Vedra Beach, Hot 106.5 FM. And you're listening to Front Page Jacksonville. I'm your host, Octavius Davis. If you'd like to jump in on the conversation, 833-758-1065 is the number to call. That's 833-758-1065. I am not anti-police. Because I tell you what, if I'm in a situation and someone is attempting to break into my home, steal my car, whatever the case, guess what I'm doing? I'm calling 911. I'm calling the police. So I'm not anti-police. I want to just make that clear. But I am anti-abusing power and authority. I am against that. I'm against that. I haven't yet had an opportunity to sit down with Sheriff Waters. Looking forward to getting him in on the show, having a very candid and honest conversation with him. Everything I'm sharing with you right now, these are questions that I'm going to ask Sheriff Waters when he's across from me. I just believe in doing that. I'm not going to come and complain to you about stuff and the person with the answers is sitting right next to me. I'm going to talk to him, seek to get a better understanding. So I would like to believe that Sheriff Waters is doing his absolute best in these situations. And his public responses, again, they're public responses. JSO has a communications team. They have PR people. I know, because I do it for a living daily. And so JSO released a response with the video that's circulating, and basically they said they're doing an internal investigation. There's a lot of context that's missing from that video, and I'll let you know right now. There is a lot of context missing from the video. When I saw it last night for the first time on X, formerly known as Twitter, and you see the cop, there's two officers in this one particular video, and they both got their own thing going on. You have one cop who's an African-American officer who has an older white gentleman in his hands. The gentleman looks to be in his 60s that this officer has. The camera pans, and you see another officer who's white, who's straddling a guy at the game, and I mean, he's wailing on him, blows.
Yeah, he
He's raining blows. I'm talking full-on UFC blows. Then the camera pans back to the first officer that I referenced, the African-American officer, and he's wailing on this older gentleman. And I was
by that time, though, the older gentleman is grabbing him. And so I heard analysis of that particular occurrence, from a former JSO officer. And so this person said that, that referencing the black guy, he was justified because, first of all, when there is a weapon in sight and there are other people around, you definitely don't want anyone to get the opportunity to grab that weapon. And because this man had his arms around him, the officer doesn't know if he's trying to grab the weapon or not. So he's going to defend himself. I said, oh, okay, maybe I can get with that, you know? And who knows what, we don't know what any of these people did or said.
And like you, because as you're sharing that explanation, I'm like, okay, I could swallow that. I could swallow that. And I say that especially because as someone
because the man should have, if the officer is hitting you, just let go. Let go. Surrender. And then, but don't go and put your arms around, try to bear hug him or whatever the term is to try to wrestle him. Don't do that. Because again, that officer is going to try to, he's got to defend himself.
And see, that's where I'm sure it becomes so complex with the internal investigations to try to sort through that, right? Because as I was preparing to mention...
But the fact that this man said this, I said, oh, I didn't think about that. Makes sense.
It makes sense.
Because first, to me, what I saw, let's step aside the fact that he's an officer. I saw a black man wailing on this older white man. That was where my concern was. And then I said, wait, he's an officer. But I didn't think about the fact that, wait a minute, he's an officer. He's got to get this man up off of him. I don't know what happened to start that or anything like that. But let me just say this. Let me just say this. It goes to show you that a lot of times we'll get shown in a terrible light for activity where the police needs to come out and all that. And then you come to this Florida-Georgia game where there's fewer of us than it is of them. And to see them act out, which is not new. We just don't always see it on the news. And I don't even know if you recall years ago, there was a killing.
I remember.
Surrounding, there was a killing surrounding after this game or something like that, but those things don't get talked about a whole lot. It's always, sorry. I just had to throw the race thing in there because it's always in our face, and people might be saying, oh, why are you throwing race in it? Because it's always there. Let's just tell the truth.
And, a few things that you mentioned I want to speak on very quickly.
Okay.
So just the aspect of the gentleman reaching for, presumably,
and they didn't
having his hand around his waist.
Having his hand around
because it wasn't stated that he was reaching for the weapon. No, he wasn't.
But
it could be assumed.
This is what the former officer's analysis was in terms of training and response to a cop's response to that incident.
So I can fully understand the officer wanting to be hyper vigilant in that situation to prevent a potential issue. I get that. As a owner of weapons, you have to be hyper vigilant when you have it on you, who's around you, what's going. I get that 130%. I get that. But one of the last points that you made was just in regards to the race card. I want to spin that a different way, and I want to refer to it as culture. And this isn't relegated specifically to the situation that happened yesterday.
Sure.
This is me just taking a 10,000-foot step back and looking at all of the activity.
Right.
Right. The loose definition for gang and just all those other things. 833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump in. And oftentimes when there is a story that hits the news where an officer's actions are in question, a shooting is in question, whatever the case may be, where there's questionable behavior from officers, either through media, through society, or even the sheriff's office themselves, not just JSO, I'm just speaking sheriffs across the board.
Sure.
That phrase, as I referenced a little bit ago, bad apple, or we don't support that kind of behavior. That's not how we were trained. That's not the training that we put out there. At some point,
and they need to stop lying.
At some point, we have to say, okay, well, hold on now. If this many people are acting out of rogue behavior, because you're saying they weren't trained that way, and this is rogue behavior. If this is rogue behavior, is it really rogue behavior, or is this how they were trained? Because every industry, it's not limited to law enforcement. Every industry has in-house things that we know about.
Very true. Yeah.
Where in-house, there are these little winks, right? There are in-house winks is what I'll call it.
Right.
But everyone who's in-house knows to keep this particular procedure, this particular process in-house.
That blue wall of protection.
You see what I mean? But if somebody gets caught doing something publicly, saying something publicly, well, we have to disassociate ourselves from that action through the media, because we can't have optics.
Right.
It's about optics.
Sure.
How much of that plays a part into this?
It wasn't a good look.
It was not a good look.
Whether it was
all.
Justified or not, it just isn't a good look.
Because for that gentleman, who had his waist around the officer and is believed that's what led to the officer's response, what did the other guy do?
Right. That's
because
what
the other, I promise you, it's on social media. I haven't been on social media yet this morning, but I'm sure if you go to Twitter, formerly known as X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, that video was out there.
Right.
And I tell you, the officer has the gentleman straddled, and he is raining down blows from heaven like
manna.
About
that first one.
Yeah.
I'm like, wait a minute. Right.
My man is going to town like money was owed.
Yeah, probably was some drinking involved and some, who knows?
Who knows?
They might have thrown some stuff. You know how it is when people get drinks in them. And you're at that game, and hey, it's just that kind of an atmosphere.
Yeah.
So
and I tip my hat off to the men and women who get up every day, put on that uniform and that badge, and walk out of that door, out of their home, not knowing if they're going to return.
Right.
I cannot imagine the level of PTSD that comes along with that job.
Right.
I couldn't imagine.
Right. Same.
Right?
Same.
And so I don't know what it's like to have to be on guard. I don't know how long their shifts are, 8 hours, 10, 12 hours, 16 hours. I don't know what it's like to go out in the community and feel as though there is a target on your back just because of, well, I kind of do understand, but in reference.
Right.
I kind of do get it, but as an officer, I cannot imagine. Could not imagine. And so I understand the need to make sure you're protecting yourself at all times. where my mind has a difficult time processing is when and again, only the instances that we see, who knows how many instances have happened that we don't see, that the camera didn't catch.
True.
But those instances where it's like, yo, come on. Why was that level of force applied? Why was the weapon even drawn? It's like, come on, this lady, I've seen instances where older women in their 70s and 80s have been handled by police officers as if they just robbed a bank.
Right. It doesn't make sense.
It does not make sense until you look into the DNA of a thing. Every organization, every institution, anything that currently exists, this microphone, this radio station, everything was created with a particular purpose in mind, a specific purpose. Now, what happens is over time, that purpose evolves and expands due to need, right? Due to the change of times, whatever the case may be. But when you put it in a pot and boil it down, most times the purpose of why that thing was created is the foundation for everything else that has been built upon. So my question for you, do you know why the police force was created? Dramatic pause intentionally. Here is the history. The origins of modern-day policing can be traced back to the slave patrol. The earliest form, slave patrol, was created in the Carolinas in the early 1700s with one mission, to establish a system of terror and squash slave uprisings with the capacity to pursue, apprehend, and return runaway slaves to their owners. Tactics included the use of excessive force. Oh, that phrase sounds mightily familiar. To control and produce desired slave behavior. So let's remove the term slave from the equation. That's modern day policing. The very same thing is still going on today. Just remove slave from the equation. It's now evolved because the gentlemen that we were referring to from the Florida-Georgia game last night, they certainly weren't African American and they definitely weren't slaves. But we saw an excessive use of force to control and produce a desired behavior. Oh, and so that you don't think that this is something that Octavius created, this is not my definition. This is the definition that is currently on the NAACP's website. This is not my definition. Would you like to hear the North Carolina Slave Patrol Oath? Again, this patrol was created in the 1700s. I, enter the patrol officer's name, do swear that I will, as a searcher of guns, swords, and other weapons among the slaves in my district, faithfully and as privately as I can, discharge the trust reposed in me as the law directs, to the best of my power, so help me God. So going back to when these instances occur and the media talk points of that goes against our training. Well, it doesn't go against the DNA. It doesn't go against your creation. It doesn't go against the purpose of why police even came into existence. There is a problem with the system of policing. I'll say that again, the system of policing. And so I learned this when I came into child welfare. that there aren't any bad children. As parents, you have to learn how to separate the child from the behavior. And when you separate the child from the behavior, it makes it easier to begin parenting that child from a place of compassion, especially if they're seeking to navigate different traumas they may have experienced. So now, taking that principle and applying it here, we have to begin separating the people who police from the system of policing. Because to me, it's really beginning to look like they're simply doing what they were trained to do. They're doing what the system was created to do. 833-758-1065 is the number to call. 833-758-1065. So even if we separate the people who police from the system of policing, we still have a problem. There is a problem here, and it's getting worse. When local police officers are being militarized, yo, who are y'all fighting? Thanos? I mean, what are we doing? What are we doing? Because what's happening, what I see happening, this is Octavius's opinion. What I see happening is the citizens are becoming collateral damage. We often hear the phrase used, and we often have seen on police vehicles, whether in film or whatever the case may be, protect and serve. But we have to start asking, protect and serve who? Protect and serve who? Our officers have a very difficult job. I empathize with every single one of you who do the job. But as a citizen, I must be honest in saying there is a glitch in the matrix of the policing system. There is a glitch in the system of policing. And if it isn't fixed, our communities, our citizens, I fear, will continue to be subjected to police brutality. This is Front Page Jacksonville. We'll be back in just a moment.
The heartbeat of the community. Front Page Jacksonville returns on Hot 106.5.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to jump on Front Page Jacksonville. That's 833-758-1065. So we're going to break up the monotony. For the past few minutes, we've been kind of getting deep into the weeds of just some of the challenges and issues throughout the community. But we got a little lighthearted spin. All right, we're going to bring up the mood of the show right about now. This brother has been putting in work. That's really the best way to put it. He's been putting in work. I'm sure if you have not heard of him, it's because you're one of those people that live off the grid. No phone, no TV, right? But I'm talking about none other than Jacksonville's very own Adrian A-Train Smith. What's going on, Doc?
What's going on, my brother? You put the government name out there, didn't you?
Yeah, we're going to put the whole thing out there, man. But, Doc, thank you for coming out to hang up with us this morning here on Front Page Jacksonville. Now, you travel a lot.
A lot, man. Yeah.
So when did you get back?
A couple of days ago.
Okay.
A couple of days ago, and then I had a show in Fleming Island Friday night.
Okay.
So people often ask me, it's like, man, where you live? I was like, out of my suitcase.
Yeah, yes, sir. Stay on the go.
This road life, man. Yeah. So
let's jump into that. So you're a comedian.
Yeah.
But your journey as a comic has not been overnight.
No.
So let's go back to the very beginning. You put up a post maybe 2 weeks ago, and on Facebook, and on the post, it's you sitting in the chair, your wife Tracy, she's in front of you, and like you have your arm around her. And on the post, you just kind of made mention about how, you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
How, there was a time where, I've had this, I've had that, and I've had the other.
Yeah.
And so now where I am in life. So let's go back to that time. Let's rewind the Wayback Machine.
Man.
Before comedy came on the scene.
That's before comedy.
When you were just Adrian Smith, right?
Yeah.
What was Adrian Smith? What were we talking about? 15, 20 years ago, maybe?
Well, that particular post, that was 24 years ago.
Wow.
That was 24
That was
years
2020.
ago. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, what 2000?
What did I say, 2020?
You said
Well, you know my math. I told y'all I don't do no math around here. Huh? He coming on the show giving me a math test. Want me to count? No, I'm 2000, right.
Yeah, you got me looking like, well, did I say it wrong?
2000.
But no, yeah, that was in year 2000. But what's so crazy is like 26 years ago, she told me, hey, you need to be doing stand-up comedy. You know what I mean? But I was just at a headspace where, that just didn't make sense to me.
Sure.
And I was like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, you crazy, But to talk about that place, like where we were then, how you have like a glimpse of, visions, like snapshots.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you can't make it out what it is. So whatever you're involved with, whatever your world is at that time, you associate those snapshots with, oh, this must be a continuation or something in reference to what I'm doing now and where I am now.
Yeah.
And back then, even, in that stage, I used to hear like snapshots and like visions of me on stage, me in arenas where the audience was just like packed out. Everything that I'm doing now, I saw it 24 years ago. But I didn't know what it was I was doing on stage.
Yeah.
I just saw the people. I saw the packed out arenas. I saw the packed out theaters. And then I was also sharing it with her. And actually, she shared it with me. And I'm like, wait, how do you see this? Because I've never told anybody this. How do you know? But that's another conversation, too. But
well, hold on. I want to go back for a moment because there's something you said now. My math ain't good, but I do listen very effectively. You said 26 years ago.
26 years ago.
Tracy told you should be doing stand-up comedy.
Exactly.
And then you said 24 years ago is when I was having these snapshots.
Yeah.
And everything I saw 24 years ago is what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
So there was a 2-year gap between what she said and what you saw.
Yeah.
What was happening within those 2 years? Because you said that she said, and you was like, nah.
Yeah. Yeah. And because 26, just to give you a hallmark here, 26 years ago is when we first met.
Okay.
And when Baby and I first met, we weren't dating, nothing. We just met, just talking, hanging out. And she's told me then, it's like, hey, you need to be doing stand-up. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Are you crazy? Like, what is that? You know what I mean? And then just to answer your question with the 2-year gap is when we were having conversations between the two of us about things, the snapshots that I would see and the snapshots that she saw. And it was like it was visuals. It was on mute.
Yep.
It was just the visuals.
And quick.
Right. And I didn't know what it was. I saw it. There's shows that I'm in the middle of now, man, that sometimes I have like those moments where it's like deja vu.
Yeah.
It's like, man, I saw this already.
Wow.
I was already here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I have those often when I'm on stage and when I'm performing. But, back to that post that you're talking about, where we were and where I was at that time, you're just going through life. And I believe it was another element of my preparation because you get a taste to to acquire things so that now it's out of your system. So now when you're in this path of life and you're walking this thing out, you're not distracted or disturbed by some of these, materialistic things and, that people like to get caught up in because your appetite for it has already been satisfied.
Yeah,
You're focused on the main thing. You know what I mean? And that's why I really believe, people like, oh, man, you don't drink? You've never had alcohol? Like, no. Like, not even like by accident. I've never had a sip of alcohol. I've never smoked anything. Like I just
by accident. How you?
You know how people like pick up
by accident.
You know how people pick up the wrong drink. Like oh my God. You know like I haven't even had that experience.
Yeah.
And looking back, you know, people like to accredit to be certain things like, oh, you better than... No, I don't think I'm better than anybody. You know, nothing against those that do. I really and literally believe that it was just, you know, me being equipped to thrive and survive in the lane and the world that I'm in today.
Yeah.
Because in this world of entertainment, you know, usually there's one or three things that kind of take artists off their game. You know what I'm saying? It's alcohol, drugs, or women.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And it's like that's not my game. You know what I'm saying? That's not my dig. You know what I'm saying? Like I keep my wife with me. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You can't get with the alcohol or the drugs. Like that's not me. You know. So and I just believe it was, you know, my journey allowing me to be equipped to survive and thrive in the thing that I'll be ultimately doing and in the environment that I'll be ultimately, you know, operating in week in and week out.
833-758-1065. In the studio with me right now is A-Train, comedian A-Train. So if you have any questions for him, you open to taking some questions from
man,
the
let's
listeners?
do it, man.
Yeah, I know you can rock with it.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, 833-758-1065 is the number to call. So you just shared with us just the beginning.
Yeah.
Of kicking this thing off. Talk to us about the very first stand-up gig that you got.
Absolutely. The very first time I did it for stand-up, keep in mind my wife signed me up into a competition because by this time, she's tired of talking to me.
She said, you're going to get out here and do this action.
You know, I was hosting shows, hosting parties, hosting events, and, you know, just doing my thing. And then she's like, she came across this comedy competition, and she signed me up into it and made me do it.
And what time frame are we talking here?
This is 11 years ago.
Okay. 20. Now, come on, man.
That's what, 15?
Why you throwing all this math at me,
no,
bro?
that's like what, 13? That's about
2013.
2013.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're throwing all these ambiguous numbers. Bro, what was the year, my guy? What was the year?
Right. So this is 2013. Right?
Got
it. So she signed me up to this comedy competition and made me do it, right? And I was like, first of all, I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, so while I'm performing, to answer your question, I'm on stage and I'm doing my bits, you know what I'm saying? And in my head the whole time, my hand to God, I'm like, this ain't even funny. Like, why are they laughing?
Yeah.
Because mind you, I'm up here doing what I'm doing just to shut her up.
Yep.
I did it this time. Don't bother me anymore.
Yep.
I'm never doing this ever again. But I do it tonight. That's it. So I'm on stage and I'm doing my thing and people are laughing and I'm just rushing trying to get through to the end.
Your set, yeah.
And man, they're laughing and I get to the end of my set. People stand up clapping. I just put the mic down and I run off stage. I go in the back and I'm like, okay, that's over. Not knowing, like, you just got to stand ovation, man. You know what I'm saying? And the judging was twofold. They had audience participation, you know, judging, and then they had a panel of judges.
Yeah.
And you know, before the night was over, I end up winning. Wow. Now the prize is 2 weeks later, you got to open up at this other show that they were having at the Times Union Theater downtown. And it's like the big stage. I'm like, what? You know what I mean?
Wow.
So even then, I'm still not hooked on it. I just did this to shut my wife up and leave me alone. So now I got to perform in this theater. And I'm doing my jokes again. And somewhere in the middle of that set, man, I was looking at them people laughing, you know what I'm saying, and the energy that was coming.
Yeah.
And, like, I remember the moment when it hit me. It's like, oh, I like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I got another standing ovation at that show. And literally from that night, the rest is history. And 2 years later, I was on the road with DL.
How did that connection happen with D.L. Hughley?
We met in New York. First, I saw him in Orlando. Saw him perform in Orlando. And then about a month or so later, you know, I saw him in New York. He was at Caroline's Comedy Club performing, and I was performing at New York Comedy Club that weekend. And we crossed paths, you know, connected. You know what I'm saying? I've always been a fan. He's always been like that guy to me.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So to be in his presence and watching him do his thing on stage was just on a whole nother level for me. And, you know, it just worked out where we was able to talk, link up, and he let me know. It's like, man, I got you from here.
Nice.
So, and he's kept his word. Yeah, so, yeah. Yeah.
We got A-Train in the studio with us, telling us about his comedic origins. And in just a moment, once we come back, we're going to talk more about this concept that you've been able to birth as well, called A-Train Live, The Experience.
Yeah.
Stick around. More is on the way. This is Front Page Jackson.
The heartbeat of the community. Front Page Jacksonville returns on Hot 106.5.
833-758-1065 is the number to call if you'd like to hop on Front Page Jacksonville and talk with Professor A-Train. He throwing all these math equations at me. Wanted me to do head math. Bro, give me a calculator and I got you.
Right, he'll be counting his fingers.
You get what I'm saying? Shoot. But man, we prior to the break, we were just talking about what started you on your journey as a comic and how your wife, prior to you all even dating, was the one who began planting those seeds into you. Yeah. And it took you some time for you to really grasp it and start believing in that same thing.
It did. And I always share with couples, like, you know, it's so important to not only link up with somebody who is rocking with you for where you are now.
Come on.
But it's expedient that you find somebody who is able to rock with you for where you're going.
Yeah.
And rock with somebody who sees where you're going and sees what's in you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they cater to that. And that's exactly what, you know, my wife has done since day one. You know what I mean? So I'm appreciative.
And with that growth, right, so you started out on this comedic journey about 13 years ago. Mm-hmm. And then this idea, this concept came about where you were essentially hosting your own comic show.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just a comedy show. There were all these other elements involved. So today, we know that as being A-Train Live, The Experience. But take us back to where you got the idea to start putting this thing together.
And I'll take you a step further. I take you back to me almost missing the moment.
Let's have it.
If it wasn't for my wife again.
Man, your wife has had your back. She's had your front and your side, top and bottom.
Because here's the thing, man. This is so funny. So I'm hosting at the original Comedy Club of Jacksonville, right?
Okay.
And me and the owner, man, we're just in sync. You know what I'm saying? He's rocking with me. I'm rocking with him. And he makes the decision one day that he's going to close the club on Thursday nights. And he's just going to operate on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and depending on how heavy the headline is, they may do a show on Sunday. So in him making this decision, he comes to me. He say, hey, I'm going to shut my Thursday nights down. It's just not wise, you know, business to keep it open. And we just do our shows on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But if you have something that you want to do on Thursday night, let me know. And, you know, I'll give the Thursday nights to you. I was like, oh, okay, I'll, you know, talk to my wife about it. So I called Babe. I'm like, Babe, the owner said he's going to give Thursday night to us if we want it, but I don't know what we're going to do on no Thursday night. But I told him I'd talk to you. She said, tell him yeah. I was like, for what? She's like, I'll explain that later. You just tell him yes. Yep. Give us that Thursday night. So we talked, and she's like, she said, don't you remember? You've always said you wanted to do, like, bring other comedians in and, you know, you perform and they perform and sit down, do an interview after the show so that people can get to know, you know, y'all relationship and why you brought this person in as opposed to them coming in, performing, telling people thank you, good night. I got merchandise in the lobby, meet me in the lobby. She's like, no, you want to, like, behind the scenes, y'all talk about what y'all did on the road and all that kind of stuff. And she was like, you love live music. You know, this is your opportunity to kind of bring you and the things you like to the stage.
Yeah.
And because when I used to talk about our senior hall when I was a kid all the time. You know, I used to have my little signature, you know what I'm saying? I was in 6th grade, you know, doing autographs, you know. And when our senior hall show came out, I was like, oh, he stole my A. Because I used to do my A just like that, you know what I mean? So then I switched my A from a circle to like just a little diamond looking thing, you know. But she was reminding me of these stories that I used to share with her. And she's like, this is the moment. You can do all of that right now. I was like, on the Thursday night? She's like, yes. She said, we'll call it A-Train Live, you know, The Experience. At that time, it used to be A-Train, comedian A-Train with friends and something. But we switched it over to A-Train Live, The Experience. And fast forward, we shared this with the owner, and he's like, okay, let's do it. And I had, put everything this vision that we had, we put it into place. And that was the first time that the Comedy Club of Jacksonville sold out on a Thursday night.
So your very first A-Train Live.
Sold out. And this wasn't no like small, little 75-seat club. The Comedy Club of Jacksonville was really the largest club in North Florida.
How many seats we talking?
There was over 300.
Listen, as somebody who worked in entertainment venues, that's huge.
That's big, man.
That is huge.
That's big.
Wow.
We used to have comedians come from up north, and they was headline that weekend, and they were like, man, this thing like a big old Costco. Like, what was it? Like, they get intimidated because the room was so big, you know what I mean, for a comedy club.
Because the Comedy Zone doesn't even sit that many.
Well, but it's intimate.
Yeah.
They can get 300 in there. Okay. But it's packed.
Yep.
But the Comedy Club of Jacksonville was so broad, it's like a showroom. Wow. It was big, you know what I mean? But and it housed over 300 seats. Yep. So, but we sold out on the first A-Train Live Day experience, right? And then from there, we had other shows, and then they sold out. And then that's when we got the call from a representative on the behalf of the city, a guy named Octavius. He's like, hey, man, got some folks here, man. We got some ideas. Need to come talk to them, man. Yeah. Like, are you available? Like, yeah, we come through, And next thing you know, I'm, inking this deal as a residency at the Ritz Theater.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And I think it was the first comedic residency
in the history of the Ritz. And that stage is so prestigious. And I didn't even realize it at the time of what we were embarking upon. Sure. I'm just like, oh, yeah, we can do comedy. You know what I'm saying? We bring the show here. Yeah, and things are working out and, make sure the paperwork fine. Yeah, we'll do it. And then we look up and say, hey, you realize that, since the conception of the Ritz Theater, 1929, they've never had a comedy series take residence here. We're like, whoa, you know what I mean? So that was something to kind of feel, proud about. And it's just been growing ever since, man. So, yeah.
Man, that's so dope. I remember, so this must have been 2015, 16, if my memory serves me correctly, when I placed that call to you. And I remember just on Facebook, just seeing your motion, man, seeing y'all moving, seeing y'all putting in work. And at that time, the Ritz Theater was going through a transition of attempting to find itself. Right. Essentially. Right. And, I can share this publicly now, but back then what many people don't know. So the Ritz went through a period where they didn't have a director. Right. And so I was the marketing manager for the facility at that time, but I was vying for that director position.
I can see that. Absolutely, yeah.
And so I began kind of strategizing. I'm a strategist, right? So I began strategizing. I was like, okay, we need to be able to bring in some shows that has the ability to put butts in seats, right? But at the same time, we have to be able to appeal to our community.
Yes, I get it.
And cause the credibility of the Ritz Theater to be restored.
I get it.
Because there were some things that happened that, disrupted the community's trust. And so when I saw what you and Tracy were doing, I was like, I'm going to holler at him.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. That's big. Yeah. That's big. And it was a perfect brand match.
Yeah. Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Because when we brought the show over there, the Ritz started receiving engagements and bookings based on people coming to our show and finding out about the Ritz.
There you go.
And all of their facilities that they had, to provide for like services. And there was some of the staff that shared this information with us. You're like, hey, since we had you guys here, we, receiving phone calls for this, and this, And so it was. I think it was a perfect match. According to your strategy, and I think, mission accomplished, man.
Indeed. And, spoiler alert, I never got the director position. That's a different story.
But you are a director. Right? You know what I'm saying? You directed your life.
But I directed some things.
You directed your life all the way up and forward to where we're sitting right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so here it was. Now you are the first comedic to hold up residency at the Ritz Theater. And you do your thing there. You spend your time there.
Yeah.
But with anything that grows, with growth comes transition.
Yes.
And so you transition from the Ritz to where you have been, I want to say maybe for the past 2, possibly 3 years now.
No, man, we've been there about 5 years now. Yeah, we were there before the pandemic hit.
Wow. Okay, so 5 years now. You've been on a strong run. Now at WJCT Studios.
Yes.
Man, you talk about growth.
Yes. And so much growth that we almost can't get a date on the calendar, because since we started doing our shows there, people, just like they did the Ritz, they were bombarded. And it's like, WJCT told me to our face, told my wife and I, it's like, we are at the point now where we have to turn gigs away. Turn them down, because we're like maxed out like each month, with events. And hey, and I mean, it's they say you got that Oprah effect. That's the A-Train. That's the A-Train live effect. Now everybody has events over there at WJCT. You know what I mean? I'm like, can y'all not give my date away?
Right.
Show me some love.
Put something to the side for your boy.
Right.
But what's dope about that is you're from right here in Jacksonville.
Born and raised, Mom Creek all day, baby.
Right. And so, real quick, we're running short on time, but there's a stigma that I've heard a long time. You've heard a long time. I'm sure our listeners have heard a long time too. Oh man, if you want to do something, man, you can't do it from your hometown. You got to go somewhere else because your hometown people don't support.
Yeah, that has never been my song.
Yeah.
I mean, since day one, I let people know, man, because I heard Jay-Z say something. He said, "Win at home first." He's like, they didn't do what they do because it's New York. He said they did what they did because they were home, and wherever you at, just make it work.
Yeah.
So that's what I believe, man. And the city, has gotten behind what we do. And my wife and I, we're strong believers in, we don't just throw shows at people. And I see a lot of people do that. They make that mistake, oh, look at this headliner, or look at this name, or look at this viral person. I'm going to bring them to Jacksonville. And it's like, you have to understand what your people and your audience want. And in 9.5 years, we've never thrown a show at our people.
Yeah.
We've always created the shows for our people.
Now, what's the difference?
When you understand who your audience is and how they rock, then you're able to do something for them. And when you don't understand it, you'll just, like I say, you'll grab a name that you think is viral. You'll grab a name that you think is a household name. You'll grab a name because they popping over here, popping over there. And you're like, yeah, come on, we'll do a date right here in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville, I'm going to tell you something. It'll humble you down quickly.
Yes, sir.
Listen, man, this is home. Michael Jackson, the Jackson 5 had to sell at the door. Janet Jackson had to sell at the door. And she was going to be kind of, risque with her dress attire. You know what I'm saying? It's like, if Janet got to sell at the door, who are you?
Right.
And Jacksonville is not a market where we're a pre-sale ticket market.
Exactly.
And we've gotten better. We've gotten better over the last, I say, 10 to 15 years. But it's because of the independent promoters jumped in there in an open market, because your big promotion engines, they used to skip over Jacksonville, like Live Nation. They'll go to Orlando, they'll go to Miami, Tampa. Fort Lauderdale, Tampa, but they would skip over Jacksonville, which opened the market for a lot of independent promoters. So when you see shows come to the arena, you think that's the big engine, but really that's some local promoters who done got together, threw their money in the pool, and brought these artists here. So when the industry saw that, man, Jacksonville is turning out a lot of concerts. Now you have the big engines come in and they'll drop their concerts here, and it's kind of pushing the middleman out now. But that was because for years we were known as a city that really wasn't a pre-sale ticket market.
Makes sense. And so how can someone get tickets for A-Train Live, the experience? Because the next show is this Friday, November 8th.
This Friday, November 8th. They go to my website at comedianatrain.com. I got comedian Rudy Rush coming in from the Chappelle Show. I got some other artists that's going to hit the stage, because we always give the people more than what they paid for. And I'm telling you right now, premium seating is already sold out. I think we have a few left in VIP and general admission, but just go to my website, comedianatrain.com. And of course, we got celebrity DJ Oxygen. He's on the ones and twos. And I'm telling you, I got a lot up my sleeve, and I can't share it now, but you're going to have to be in the house in order to take part of what's going down.
Make sure you get your tickets to support comedian A-Train at A-Train Live, the experience going down this Friday on November 8th. What time does the show start?
Doors open up at 6, and show gets started like around 7. So, we have a pre-show experience and all of that. So people know, they know, get there.
There you have it. Go ahead and get you some tickets.
Outside.
Hey, and that's going to do it for today's show. Thank you so much to A-Train for coming out to hang out with us today. Coming up next is Health Beat with Wanda P. Hey, I'm Octavius Davis. You've been listening to Front Page Jacksonville. We'll catch you next time. Peace.
Front Page Jacksonville, Sundays from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. For show episodes, go to hot1065fm.com. We are Hot 1065.